In this part, we are going to create a Apollo servers. So first, we create a directory, and then we go inside this folder, and then we type code to enter the VS Code. Now, after we enter the VS Code, we create a folder called server, and then we go inside the terminal, and we enter the server folder by typing cd server, and then we type npm init and -y to use the default values. So now we have the package.json, and then we install the package like Express. So we type npm i express, and also install the Apollo Server Express and GraphQL and also the mongoose. And if you haven't installed the NodeMon, you could type npm i NodeMon and install globally by using -3, and this is allow us to automatically start the server or restart the server when there are file changes. And before we continue, we go to the package.json and we add a line called type, and then we choose modules, so we can use the import and export syntax like in client side. So now we back to the server and we create index.js, and inside the index.js we import the express from express, and then we also import the Apollo server from the Apollo server express. And after that, we create a typedefs and also the resolver, and we create a very simple query. So we type constant typedefs is equal to GQL, and we should import this from the Apollo Express server. So we continue and we add the type query, and the name is welcome, and we expect it will return a string. And then we continue to create the resolvers, and we type query, and we generate the response of welcome is to return a string which is welcome to CK Mobile, and we need to type the colon in between the query and the curly bracket. And now we continue to create the init server function. So we type async function init server, and then we type constant app is equal to express, and then we pass the typedefs and also the resolvers to the Apollo server. So we type constant Apollo server is equal to new Apollo server, and then we pass the typedef and also the resolvers. So before we apply the middleware, we need to start the Apollo server. So we await Apollo server dot start, and then Apollo server dot apply middleware, and then we pass the app inside these apply middleware functions, and then we create a very simple response. So later we can see whether the server starts successfully. So we use app.use request response, and then we just return the server start successfully. And then we create a port, constant port is equal to process dot environment dot port or 5000. We do this is just prepare for later for the deployment to the remote server. And then we use app.listen port, and then we return console.log rest server is running on port, and then we pass the port variable inside this string. And at last we have to init the server, so we save it, and then we try to start the server by typing nodemon index. Now you can see it start running on the port 5000. So now if we type localhost 5000, it will return the string server start successfully, and we can go to the GraphQL by typing /GraphQL, and it will provide a UI for you to start testing the query. For example, we can type the query welcome. This is just a arbitrary name. You can name it whatever you want. So it already provides a example. So we try to execute, and you can see it returned a string which is welcome to CK Mobile, which we set at here. In this part, we will separate these two into two different files. So we go to the servers and then we create a file called typedefs.js. And then we cut this out and paste inside this file. And you can see we need this GraphQL. And so we have to import from the Apollo Server Express. So we copy this and paste on the top. And we remove this Apollo server, and at the end of this file we have to export default, and we copy this file name, and then we have to create a resolvers.js. So we go to here and type resolvers.js, and we go to the index and we cut this and paste to this file, and again we export default resolvers, and then we back to the index. If we save this, you can see we haven't import this file, so we have to import the typedef from the typedef.js, and we do it same with the resolvers. So we copy this and we change this name and we save this. And now we back to the UI page and we try to see whether it still works. Now we try to run the query, and you can see it still can return the string welcome to CK Mobile. So which means these files work successfully. In this part, we are going to create a to-do model. So we go to the server folders and then we add a folder, and then we call models. And inside this folder, we create a new file called todo.js, and then we import the mongoose from mongoose, and then we constant schema is equal to mongoose.schema, and then we use constant todo schema is equal to new schema, and then we set the title. The type is string, and required is true, and then we have the detail, and the detail is string, so we do not need this curly bracket because this is not required. And then we have the date, the data type is date, and also we can add the timestamp is true, and this enable the created add and updated add properties at the schema. And then at here we create a constant todo is equal to mongoose.model, and then todo and todo schema, and then we have export default. And now we already create the to-do models. In this part, we are going to connect to our MongoDB. So now we have to get the link of our MongoDB. So we click connect. If you do not know how to set up the MongoDB, you can go to our YouTube channel and search our setup MongoDB. And I will also put the link below. And now we go to connect to your applications, and then we click copy. And then we back to our project and we go to our server folder and create a new file called .env, and then we paste the link here, and we also set the MongoDB is equal to, and then we also need to change this username to CK Mobile, and I also remember the password is CK Mobile 123. So we save this. And then we stop our server because in order to read this file, we have to install a package called .env, and we will also use the course because later if we deploy to our remote server, we need to solve this course origin problem. So we enter, and then we go to the index, and back to here we import the mongoose from mongoose, and we import the course from course, and then we import the .env from .env. And now under the init server functions, we go to the express, and under this we type app.use course, and then we also use .env config. And then right before listen the port, we use the mongoose to connect the MongoDB. So we type await mongoose.connect. But right before we continue, we use a try catch block to wrap this because we go to catch the error. And then we enter process.env.mongodb, and this is targeting this string. So we go to here and type console.log connected to MongoDB at port. So if there's error, we just console.log the error. So we try to type nodemon index, and now you can see it connected to the MongoDB at port 5000, and also the Express server is running on port 5000. So now it connected to the MongoDB successfully. Now we are going to get all the to-dos. So first we go to the typedefs.js, and we are going to create a query to get the to-dos. So right inside here, we click enter and type get to-dos, and we expect there is an array of to-do, and this type we haven't defined yet. So we go to the top and then we type to-do, and then we have the ID with type ID, and then the title is string, and the detail is also string, and the date is date, but we haven't defined the date yet. So we go to the top again and we type scalar, and then we type the date, and then we go to the resolvers, and we are going to create get to-dos, and then we have async and then constant to-dos equal to await to-dos dot find, and we haven't import the to-do, so we have to go to the top and import to-do from models to-do.js, and then at here we are going to return to-dos, and there is a mistake that we put outside the curly bracket, so we have to put back inside here. So we save it and we click comma and click save. Now if we back to here and type GraphQL, now if we go to here, you can see there is get to-dos, and if we run the query, we can see the get to-dos has empty array, and this is valid because we haven't stored any to-dos inside the MongoDB. Now after we already create the get to-dos function, we are going to add the create to-dos. So in typedef, under the type query, now we are going to add the type mutations, and inside this curly bracket we add to-do, and then we pass the title, the detail, and also the date, and it will return to-do. And then we go to the resolvers, and just like inside the typedef, we are going to add the mutations, and we are going to use the same name to-do, add to-do, and then we have the async, and then we pass the root and also the arguments, and then we have the constant new to-do is equal to new to-do, and then we pass the title, and the title is from the arguments dot title, because if you look at this typedef, this is the arguments, and arguments dot title is the title, so we will type like this, and then we going to continue to get the details and also the date. So this is the detail and this is the date, and now we are going to wait the new to-do already saved, and after it already saved, we return the new to-do values. So now we can try on the GraphQL, and now we go to add the mutations, and then we have add to-do, and inside this add to-do we going to pass the value of the title. This is first to do, and then we going to add the detail, and we just duplicate a few times, and at last we have to add the date, and then we returned the ID, the title, the detail, and also the date. Of course, you can remove some of this. For example, if we click this, it will return the ID, the title, the details. And now if we go to add the second to do, and we add another date, and this time we just want to return the ID and title. If we run this again, now you can see it just return the title and also the ID, and this is the powerful of the GraphQL. So now we can try to get all the to-dos again, and we run the get to-dos, and now we also want to get the title and also the details and also the date. Now if we execute, now you can see we get 2 to-dos with all the properties like ID, title, details, and also the date. In this part, we are going to get a single to-do, and like the previous process, we also have to add the query at here. So we name it as get to-do, and then it just returned the to-do, and because this is not an array, this is a single to-do, so we just pass these to-do here, and then we go to the resolvers, and this time we want to get the to-do. We duplicate this and we change this to to-do, and we also have the root and also the arguments, and this is just a to-do. Instead of find, we now find by ID, and then we have the art.id, and then we have to return the to-do. Now we can try this. Now we copy this and paste again, and we delete this, and we pass the ID, and for example we copy the ID of the second to do, so we copy this and we paste here. It set this unknown argument ID, so we go back to the query, and this is because we forgot to pass the ID at this part, so we need to add the ID, and the type is ID. So now we try to run again. Now you can see it return the second to-dos, details, titles, and also the date. In this part, we are going to delete the to-dos, and the process is very similar to the get to-do because we also need the ID, but this time is the mutations. So we have to add delete to-do, and then we pass the ID, and then it will return a string. And again, we have to go to the resolvers, and at the resolvers we have to add the delete to-do, and then we use async again. So we copy this and paste to here, and then we use await to-do dot find by ID, and so we pass the art.id, and then after it delete, we can say the to-do deleted successfully. Now we can go to the UI, and then we create a new mutations. So we go to here and add the mutations, and we set delete to-do, and then we pass the ID. For example, we pass the second to-do ID, so we copy this and then we paste here, and then we go to run this. And it said it failed to go to the server, so we back to here and see what happened. It said it delete, it has the defined in resolvers but not defined in the schema, so we back to the type, and then we save it, and now we try this again. Now you can see the to-do deleted successfully, and if we try to get the to-dos again, you should see only one to-dos. So we execute. Now you can see we just has the first to-do inside this array. So it already implied the to-dos already deleted successfully. Now we are going to create an update to-do operations. So we go to the typedefs, and at here we click enter, and then we type update to-do, and then we pass the ID, and then we have the title and also the detail string date. So we copy this and paste to here, and it should return the update to do. And then we go to the resolvers, and after we get the titles, IDs, details, and all the other things, we are going to create these functions update to do, and we copy this and paste to here, and we will get the values from the arguments. So we destructure the ID, title, details, and also the date from the arguments, and then we create the update to do object, and then we are going to check if the title is undefined. Then we will set the new title, otherwise we will use the original values. So we check if this is undefined, and then update to do dot title is equal to title. Now we do all the things in a similar way, so we copy this and paste twice. So we are going to update the detail and also the date. Now we are going to create the to-do is equal to await to-do dot find by ID and update, and we pass the ID and also the update to do, and then we also add the new true, and then after that we return these to do. Now we go to here, and then we add the mutations. So we copy these and we paste to here, and now we are going to use the update to do, and then we copy this ID and we pass the ID and we paste the ID at here, and now we try to update the first to do to become having the title of second to do, and then we try to run this. Now you can see it returned the update to do. So now if we try to fetch all the to-dos, now you can see the name, the details already changed to second to do.